Alright, for my wave controller, my text file, I have everything in brackets, so then you just decide what wave number you want to call it, and you put in this order. If you change order, it does mess it up because I don't have it parsing depending on what the word is. However, I do have it set up, so then inside my wave controller, when it goes through the text file, if there's any waves that they miss, so if they go from wave 1 to wave 3, it'll check if any of the waves IDs aren't correct, and I'll put in a default number, so then the game still won't crash at least. Then after it goes through all this data in the text file, it will set the very first wave in each of the spawners and also in the controller, because the field controller, the mushroom field decides when the flea should spawn because of how many mushrooms are on the field. The wave controller also tells the spawners when to destroy all its active items. So we go in here specifically in like the centipede head spawner. The centipede head spawner is the spawner for both the head and segment, so it's just centipede spawner, but it removes all active items, which is a list, and just going through here until it's empty, it just starts kicking them out. And then we have the player class. The player class is literally a bunch of gets and sets. So when you're going through here and it's being created inside the player controller, these are the constructors, and then you just set up how many lives there's supposed to be, what the score is. It has its ID just in case if I would need it, because if I had more than one player, because I have it set up that I could have more than one player. And then inside here, this is also in the player manager, the player controllers, where I switch characters and initialize them, so I can change their scores and set up what needs to be done. Like this also tells the field controller to start regenerating. Then after it's done regenerating, to start switching off players. So then you can see the regeneration, and then right after the regeneration is done, you start switching players, whether or not it's an actual player or AI. And then it'll also change like what the field is. So this is setting up the next player, it's resetting the spawns, setting the input like I was showing before. And then for the text display, everything's basically should be very close to how the flywheel system should be set up. I do not have a factory though for my glyphs, so it is not recycling anything, which is a problem. But I don't have that resetting for any of that stuff, so if I go and use any of these, it stays on the screen and it's not being destroyed. Let's see. Sound manager. Once again, I don't have. Oh, it's sound manager. Don't even have to worry about that one. The HUD and score manager. I don't use that many observer panners. I have more singletons. So I already showed that the commands are being made once in the score manager in the very beginning, depending on whenever the spawner spawns the scorpion or flea. Whenever it spawns, it will set off the score event in the score manager for these command scores. To give out points, it'll go and set off a command to add score, which this is only done when there's a keyboard, meaning there's a player. So if the AI destroys anything, it won't send any of this stuff to the screen or give anything to the player. So it also does this, and then it talks to the text manager to say to update the score with the current score. So I send the whole score, and I use, see if I can bring it up really quick for text writing. So I have two HUDs, one for the AI and one for the player. So basically what happens is I have a glyph counter, so basically the glyph counter knows how far left or right to put the next player position. So then if it only adds one, it's only going to change that one at the very end and not the whole thing. But it's still stacking on top of each other anyways. Then we have the command pattern. We already were talking about that with this stuff. The high score, it changes the high score. So then this is when your score gets higher than the high score counter, whatever the score is, it goes and changes that. This is for switching positions for player 1 and player 2 because I do have that working. And then this is the draw. And then this is gross. This is what you're talking about that we need glyph strings for, and I'm not using them at the moment. So basically you get the high scoreboard, which the score manager does at the very beginning, so it only does it once. And it'll go and change this and set that up, and then it changes the score. So like if the current player beats a high score and then dies and it goes back to AI, it'll show it on the screen. It does not change the initials though, because I did not have the input set up for it. So once again, just showing that it only gets initialized once, that you see that as things spawn, like the spider spawns, is made once, and then spider spawned again, but it's not showing it again for these score commands. And my high score manager is inside my score manager in my HUD, which I could have it as a separate thing, clearly, because I have my high scores right here, and it manages it if it needs to change. And then this also shows it all, and it does it through the text manager and not like a high score manager. But once again, with this stuff, once it goes through these, we have the start glyph space. This is in the beginning of the game, since it's through the field controller to spawn a glyph space, which is like the mushrooms, and they have their own base class, and it sets it as normal. So then whenever the centipede will look in that glyph, that spot on the grid, it knows that it's normal and not free, and that it'll go and move away from it. So then like this for the centipede head on the right, it goes and thinks that S is a mushroom, and it'll avoid it.